In this video, I'm going to show you how to fully automate AI-generated videos and your own customized avatars using HeyGen, Airtable, and Make.com to create videos just like these. And then we'll go through and build out an automation just like this from scratch. All right, so now let's talk about how this demo Airtable base works with HeyGen and how that connects up with our Make automation. So we'll go through that example and then I'll actually help you build out a more simplified version that you can use today in your own automations. And then you can use this Airtable base as inspiration for building your own solution. So let's go ahead and start in Airtable. I have a few different tables here. In this table here, scripts, this is where we store all of our scripts. We can generate those scripts automatically from two different places. We can either record voice notes in Slack and import those, create a transcript, and then generate a script. Or we can actually drop in a link to a TikTok video. We'll download that video, create the transcript, and then generate the script from there. And then it's in this column here where we can actually select which avatar we want to generate our video from. And by that, I mean we can upload different avatars. They can be vertical videos, they can be horizontal, they can be wearing different clothes. Here, I'm wearing a polo shirt, and then I've got a sweater on this video here. So it allows me to create a wide variety of videos to select from. But before we do that, let me show you how we generate the transcript and then also the script. So this automation here allows us to import our voice notes in from Slack. I'll show you how to build this, but it basically watches for new messages, downloads the file, transcribes that file into text, and then writes that script into Airtable. And so you can see here we have that file, we have that transcript. And then once any one of these scripts actually has a transcript, then there's another automation that we run right here that will take that transcript, convert it into an actual video script, and then we'll write it back to Airtable. Now, if we're generating that script from a TikTok, then when we put in a TikTok URL here, it will actually execute this automation where we use Apify to actually download that TikTok. Then we download that file, transcribe it, and then we write that transcript back to Airtable. And just like when we transcript our own voice from Slack, and again, quickly to demonstrate how that works, I have a channel here called Speak to Social. I recorded my own audio notes into that channel to get the transcript to generate the script. The same thing's happening here, except that we download the TikTok, we get the transcript, and then it will execute this automation here to take that transcript and generate the script, and then write it back to Airtable just like this. So it doesn't really matter what that source input is. We get a transcript and we create the script, and then we select the avatar. And so now if I were to select the avatar, we'll go ahead and pick this avatar here, Vertical Steven in business attire. That's going to trigger the automation. It's going to send a request to HeyGen. Once HeyGen actually processes that video, it's going to send a webhook to this trigger here in Airtable, in which case we can actually save that new video to the video table here, where it references the script but gives us access to that HeyGen video. So this video was created a few minutes ago, but the one I triggered here should be generated in just a few minutes. But if I were to come to videos here, I could open this up. I could watch the video.
In this video, I'm going to share a game.
And of course, I could download it. And then I have these other tabs here. This is for our avatars. I can add in all the avatars that we've uploaded into the HeyGen system so that when we are generating videos from the script, we can access those here. This is going to give us a complete list. So if I wanted to generate the same script in a different avatar, instead of doing the vertical Steven, I could also do the horizontal Steven. And now that's going to trigger another automation. If we were to come back to Make, we can see here it just issued 2 new requests for videos. And so in just a few minutes, we should see a video come through here. And so you can actually see here that we have a new request coming in from HeyGen. We can actually see the response from their service here in the body. Looks like the video was a success, and they give you that resource. So in this automation here, we're able to create that row in our videos table. And here we have that row here. We can take a look and we can play it out.
In this video, I'm going to share a game-changing tip on how you can take your YouTube.
So just by recording some raw audio into your own Slack channel, importing that into Airtable, or pulling down a TikTok and transcribing it, we're able to create that script and generate that video. Now, if you want access to this Airtable template and the Make blueprint, so you can simply import the blueprint and have that automation just pop right up, make sure to jump into the No Code Architects community. We have a Make and Airtable course and an automation vault that includes the automations that you're seeing today and a bunch of others. All right, so now let's get into the actual build of this automation. You are going to need a Slack account. So you can get this for free. You don't have to have a paid account. I went and created a new workspace and I created a channel here called Speak to Social. And then I simply went into that channel and as myself the only member of this group, I recorded, I think, about a 45-second. Actually, it looks like it's about a minute long. I just simply, off the top of my head, I started talking about one of the biggest things that I have learned when creating YouTube videos. And I didn't spend much time trying to script this out. I just, from the top of my head, and I meandered around a little bit. It's really not important. ChatGPT will clean up your thoughts later, but you do need to have this workspace, a channel setup, and a voice note to import into your Make automation. You're also going to need a HeyGen account. I believe it might be possible to have a free account and use the API. In that case, it usually puts a watermark on your video, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So make sure to check out their pricing, and keep in mind they have two different types of pricing models. One for when you are using the interface. So that is when you are creating videos from within the interface. And then they also have another pricing plan when you are using the API. So it does look like they have a free version here that gives you 10 free credits, but it is going to include that watermark. So you need to create your HeyGen account. You need to come down here to avatars, and you'll need to create that new avatar. Once you have a avatar, then you can also upload additional looks in different formats and wearing different clothes. And you will need to upload those and let them process, because we will need these IDs here for the API. And you'll also need to create a new Airtable base from scratch. Here I have a brand new base that I'm going to start working through in this video. And then you'll also want to have a Make automation ready to go where you can start a new scenario. It does take 10 or 15 minutes to process your avatars when you upload your video. So make sure to get that process started now, so that when we get to it later in the automations, it'll be ready to go. So again, first things first, you want to have your Slack workspace set up. You want to have your channel here. I'm using a private channel, and you want to record some audio here that includes your thoughts on a specific topic. And then once you have that, we can come back to our Make automation, and then we can go ahead and add a new module. In this case, I'm going to look for Slack. I'm going to go ahead here and show more. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to go to watch private channel messages. I already have a connection created for this particular workspace. If you don't already have a connection to that workspace, you'll need to add that here. Next, I'm going to come to input method. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as select from a list. It's going to give me a list of private channels. And then I'm going to go ahead and select speak to social, which is the channel that I put my voice notes in. You can go ahead and leave the limit at 2. Now with these types of triggers, when you turn them on, they're always looking for new content. So if you recorded this previously and you run this automation over and over, it's not going to continually find the audio notes. When you're testing, you'll want to come to choose manually, which will actually give you a list of previously sent messages. You can select that audio note, and then you can run the automation. Looks like there was some sort of error, but it doesn't look like anything's here. I'm going to go ahead and resave that. Error went away. Now I'll go ahead and run it. So now it's finding that message here, and we can see that there is a file, and we have a audio file from the channel, which is this audio here. Now, again, if I wanted to run and test this again, I would need to come back here. I would choose where to start, choose manually, and then I could choose that audio note over and over again for testing and building out this automation. Once I'm done with this automation and I turn it on, then this trigger will always find the new messages, and I won't have to use this choose where to start method. So from here, we're going to go ahead and continue on. We need to now download that audio file so that we can transcribe it in a module here. So right here, we are going to go ahead and download that audio. So I'm going to go ahead and add another step here. And again, we're going to use the Slack module. We are going to download a file. We'll use the same connection we did before. For the private download URL, we're going to use the URL from step number 1. Come over here to files, URL private download, and we can go ahead and click OK. Now I'm going to add a filter here as well, so that we only process the messages that have a audio file. So I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to add a condition on whether this URL private download exists, and we can change that here to exists. So now it's only going to get past this step when it's an actual audio file that we can download. Otherwise, it's going to skip it. I'll go ahead and click OK. And so what I mean by that is if I were to come here and type a message, then it's going to skip that message. It's not going to download anything because it can't. It's not an audio message, and so it'll just ignore it. So periodically make sure to save your automation. And again, just for testing, I'm going to come here. I'm going to go choose where to start, choose manually. I'm going to go ahead and select that previous message I have, the audio message. I'll run once, and now you can see it's able to download that. It's able to pass the filter, and then we were able to download it. And now we have the data that we can use. So the next thing we need to do is we need to actually transcribe that audio file. So I'm going to go ahead and use ChatGPT Whisper. We'll create a transcription. If you don't already have a connection to OpenAI, then you'll need to create that connection. I'm going to go ahead and use my existing one. And for the file to transcribe, I'm going to go ahead and use the file that we got in this previous step. We don't need to add a prompt. We can leave all of this as is. We can go ahead and click OK. Looks like it's got another error there saying that values are empty. I'll double check that. They look okay. So I'll go ahead and click OK again. Sometimes that happens. Just have to go through that process. I'm just going to assume that works. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. What I'm going to do here is to simplify our automation a bit from the way I did it in the demonstration. What I'm going to do is I'm going to download that file. I'm going to transcribe it. I'm going to generate the script and actually use it all in a single automation. That's just going to make it a little bit easier to build out, and then you can customize it as you see fit. So next up, I'm going to come here and I'm going to use ChatGPT. I'm going to create a completion. Again, I'm going to use the existing connection that I already have. And for the model, I'm going to go ahead and use GPT-4o. I'm going to go ahead and add a new message. For the role, I'm going to use user. For the text content, I'm going to go ahead and paste the transcript from the previous step, just like that, into the prompt. Hit enter a couple times. I'm going to jump back to this automation here and just grab the prompt that I was using before. Here, this prompt says, read the transcript above, write a 45-second video script for a social media video. Only include the script. Do not include anything else. Only the pure script that can be read aloud. Do not include scene instructions or suggestions about the video and how it should be filmed. Only include the script that can be read. Start with in this video. So let's just take that. Let's drop it right here. And then we can just go ahead and scroll down, go ahead and click OK. Now from here, let's go ahead and test everything. I'm going to save it. Let's come back to Slack. Let's choose where to start, choose manually, grab that audio note once again, click OK. And then we'll go ahead and run the automation once. This should do the transcription, and then we should take that transcription to actually generate the video script. So now we have an actual video script that was taken from the audio notes that was recorded from Slack. In this video, I'm going to share the secret that helped me skyrocket my YouTube channel and business growth on and on. So now we've got our script. So now the only thing we need to do now is to call HeyGen, have it create that video, and then when it's done, we'll have it send that request back into Airtable so we can write all the information here. So before I actually modify this table, let's actually just see what the data that comes back from HeyGen actually looks like. So let's go ahead and just start in the automations here. I am going to add a trigger, and the trigger is going to be when webhook received. So now we have a webhook here that can accept the response from HeyGen. But before we can actually use this webhook, we have to register it with HeyGen. So I'll show you how to do that now. Now, if you go to the HeyGen documentation for their API, I'm at docs.heygen.com/reference/add a webhook endpoint. What they have here is a list of all of the different API endpoints that they have available to use. And it's actually more than just a help page that shows you all of the different endpoints. You can actually use this help screen to test out the endpoints. So when it comes to creating these webhooks, something that we only do one time, sometimes it's just easier to take care of it here on their documentation page where everything's set up. All you need to do is add your API key right here in this header section. I just deleted mine. You'll notice that the X API key goes right here. So if you come back to HeyGen here and you select on your account and you go to subscriptions, you will see your API key here. You can copy that. You can come back to the HeyGen documentation. You can come down to add a webhook endpoint, add that API key right here. Then you also need to scroll down here and you need to add the URL that is coming from Airtable. So we'll come back here to Airtable. We'll grab this webhook here. We'll copy it. We'll come back here to the documentation. I'm going to add that URL right here. And what you can see, it's actually building the request right here. And then we can simply say, try it. I'll click that now. And we have a success. I can actually come here to webhooks list webhook endpoints. This is going to allow me to make a call that lists all the webhooks that I have registered in add a webhook endpoint. So I'm going to go ahead and try that. It's going to remember my API key and keep that here. I'm going to go ahead and try. And now you can see I actually have 2 webhooks that have been registered because I already had one and I just added a new one. And because I don't need 2 of them, I can simply come here to the endpoint ID. I can grab that. I can copy it. I can come down here to delete a webhook endpoint. Again, it's going to keep that API key here, but I can simply take that endpoint ID. I can add it here to the delete a webhook endpoint, and I can try it. And we have another success. So if I were to come back here to list webhook endpoints, and try it again. Now I'm back to just having one registered webhook. And so once you've registered that webhook that came from Airtable into HeyGen, once we request a new video to be created, once that video is done, it will send a request to this webhook. Now, if you're enjoying this video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. It tells me what type of content you want more of. All right, so now that we've registered that webhook, the only thing that we need to do now is to make the call to HeyGen to generate that video so that it can trigger this webhook, and then we can finish out our Airtable automation. So I'm gonna jump back to make here, and I'm gonna add another module. In this case, I'm gonna add the HTTP module. We're going to make a request. For the URL, you can go ahead and copy and paste what I put here. For the method, we're going to go ahead and use a post. For the header here, I'm going to add an item. We'll type accept application/JSON. Then we'll add another header here called X API key. Again, you'll come back to HeyGen and grab your key, and I'll add that here. Next up, we're going to go ahead and set the body type to raw, and then we can select content type JSON, application JSON. And then I'm going to copy this request content in from a previous example. I'm going to go ahead and reposition this, try to make it easier to read. Now you do see here we have some make.com automation placeholders that are getting copied in from my previous example. So for all of these, we're going to have to delete those and add in our own. One other thing to keep in mind as well when you copy something like this into this request content, sometimes spaces and new lines will cause this to break. And when you run it, you'll get a 400 error. If you run into that, and I might myself when I execute this, so we'll see. But if you run into that, the best thing to do is just to remove all of the enters and all of the spaces from this content, so it just looks like a big blob of characters. But it's definitely easier to type out in this format like this. So I'm going to come down here. We have the video inputs and we have the avatar ID. I'm going to go ahead and remove this here. Also, and just to make this easier, I'll put this text in the YouTube description below so that you can copy and paste it directly into this automation. But for the avatar ID, I need to jump back to HeyGen, and then I'm going to pick one of these avatars here. I'm going to go with this one. This is camera-b.mov. So I'll come down to these three dots. I'll get avatar look ID. Then I'll come back to the automation here, and then I'll add that right here to the avatar ID. Make sure you drop that right in between the two quotes. Now we need to pass in the script. So I'm going to erase the previous placeholder that was there, and then I'm going to use the script that was generated from the previous step here in the result. Again, make sure you get that right in between the two quotes. And now for the avatar voice ID, I'm going to remove this placeholder. I'm going to come back to HeyGen. This is camera B, so I'm going to go to the AI voices. We have one for camera B here. I'm going to go to the three dots, get voice ID, come back here, and I'm going to drop that here in between these two quotes. And then for the dimensions, this particular avatar, camera B, is a horizontal video. So in the automation here, I'm going to put dimensions width is 1920, and the height, I'm going to remove the placeholders, is 1080. Now, when it comes to the callback ID and the title, the callback ID is used as a reference point. You can pass HeyGen an ID, and when it's done processing that video, it will send that ID back to you so that you can reference which video they are sending you a response from. In this particular use case, the way we've set this up, we don't really need the callback ID. That's more important in a more complicated solution like this, where we already have an existing row that is generating the video. And once the video is done, we want to relink it with this existing row. In this automation where we're creating the video on the fly, so we don't need the callback ID, I'm just going to go ahead and pass something arbitrary. I'm going to go ahead and use this system fingerprint that came back from ChatGPT. I'm going to go ahead and put that right in the quotes there. And then for the title, I'm going to go ahead and use the system fingerprint as well. Again, I'll drop that right here in between the quotes. And then in your particular solution, you can go ahead and expand on those as needed. So now that I've gone through and replaced all of the placeholders, we should be good. We've got the avatar ID, we've got the voice ID, we've got the script, we've got the dimensions, and we have the callback ID and the title. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. I'm going to come back to step number one. I'm going to go choose where to start. Choose manually. We'll go ahead and click those voice notes. We'll click OK, and let's go ahead and run this. Now we're creating the transcription. Now we're creating the video script. Now we're sending it to HeyGen. So let's take a look at our response here. We got a code 200. That is a good sign. That means it was successful. So now all we're waiting for now is for that video to complete And when it's done, it should send a request back to our Airtable webhook. So we'll just wait for that to process. It could take up to 5 to 10 minutes. All right, so I'm waiting here for that webhook to fire, and I noticed that it wasn't coming back. And I started to remember that when I set up the webhook in the HeyGen documentation, I added the new webhook and then I deleted the extra one. And the one I deleted happened to be the new webhook that I created for this demo. So I went back to the HeyGen documentation and I added this particular Airtable webhook back into my configuration. And I'm just showing you this because it's good to have these debugging skills. I'm going to go here and just list my webhooks. Again, I'm going to have 2 of them, and it's the second one that is the most important, I believe. I'm going to look at the URL here. I'm going to scroll over. This is ending in V4N, and this is ending in 3JT. So actually, if I come back here, it looks like this is the webhook that I want. So then the one I want to delete is actually this endpoint right here. I'll take it, come back here to the delete a webhook endpoint. I'm going to add that endpoint here. I'll go ahead and try it. If I come back to list webhooks and try it again, now we'll just see one, and we have the webhook that we need, which is this webhook here in our demo. So now I'm going to come back to our make automation. I'm just going to run this once more. Again, I just showed you that to show you how things do happen, and you need to be able to navigate those situations and find your way out. So we'll go ahead and select that audio node again. I'll run this from scratch, downloads the file, creates the transcript, creates the script, and then we'll call HeyGen again. We'll check out HeyGen. Looks like it's a 200. I believe if we come to the HeyGen UI, we should be able to refresh our projects and see the video being generated. So it's 140, and so we can see that the API video is processing. So once that's done, this time it should properly trigger this webhook. All right, so now that video has completed. Sometimes it does take a few seconds to respond. You'll notice that it just came through. So when that request hits this URL right here, you should see it right away. You can also test the trigger here, but it should pop up on its own, assuming the video creation was successful and you've set up the webhook URL correctly. And so now all we have to do is process this information here in the body. So I'm going to go ahead and expand it to see what's in there. So we have event type, avatar video, success, and then we have some more information here in the event data. So I'm going to go ahead and open that up. It looks like we have a video ID, a URL, and a callback ID. So then all we have to do is come over to Airtable. I'm going to go ahead and just rename these things accordingly. Video ID. We'll go ahead and save it. So we'll go ahead and add a URL here as well. I'll make it a URL. Just like that. We'll save it. We'll also save the callback ID. We'll change it from user to single line text. We'll go ahead and save that. And then we can also add an attachment to actually download the URL automatically. So we'll change this to attachment. We'll call it the actual video. We'll save it. We'll actually rename this table to HeyGen videos, save it. And then we'll change the base name to HeyGen video generator. And so now we can just come back to our automation. We'll come to this second action here. We'll add an action. We'll create a record. And for the table, we're going to select the HeyGen videos. We're going to add the fields, video ID, callback ID, URL, and video. For the video ID, we'll use the body, event data, video ID. For the callback ID, we'll add the body, event data, and the callback ID. And for the URL, we'll add the URL from the body, event data, URL. And then for the video, we can simply pass the URL again to this attachment field, which will make it download and save it to Airtable, URL. And we can actually come down here to run as configured, scroll down, run test. And then if we jump back to Airtable, we should actually see it create that row here. I'll delete the test records. And so now we have the video and it creates a cool little thumbnail for us as well. Now I did notice here when I was running my test that it was just giving me a GIF here. So it looks like as part of the process of their automations is that there are several different things that will trigger when you actually generate a video. And one of them is just an animated GIF like this. So then what I noticed was that I came back to the automation and just a few seconds later, another automation triggered into the webhook. So now I'm taking a look at the body here, And now this is an avatar video success. If you went back and looked at the earlier spot in the video, it said avatar video GIF success, which I didn't notice. I did read it, but I didn't notice it. And so now it's actually passing us the video, and we can come in here and we're seeing the video ID, the URL, and the callback. So what we probably want to do here is, instead of just writing every single row that comes into Airtable, we're only going to save and create a row when it is avatar video success. So what we can do here is we can add some conditional logic, and we'll go ahead and update the condition here based off of the body and the event type. In this case, we're going to type avatar_video.success, and we can change this to is avatar_video.success. What'll happen is it'll only create this row when we get back the webhook for the actual video being successfully completed, not just the animated GIF. So it does show you that their API is able to send you various different types of assets that you may be able to use. You might actually have a use case for that animated GIF. I do believe also when you set up the webhooks, if I scroll down here to add a webhook, you can actually use this here when you set up the webhook, this events body parameter, to only issue a webhook under certain circumstances. So if I open this up here, this is another endpoint that will give us a list of the webhook events. If I go ahead and try that, it's going to show us all of the different events we can trigger on. And so then when we add the endpoint, if we only wanted to trigger off a video success and not a video GIF, then when we add that webhook here, we can first add the URL, and then we can add that string here. And now when we add this webhook, it's only going to fire under this circumstance. And then back in the Airtable automation, once you have this configured, I'm going to go ahead and run this on the new data. So we'll test the condition. So that failed, it looks like, because I have a spelling issue here. I'm going to come back to the condition here that we set up previously. I'm going to edit that condition. I'm going to update this to success, add the other S. Then we'll go ahead and test the condition again. So again, we're testing the webhook that had the video success, not the GIF. Now it's successful. So now we should be able to create this inner row with the data, run as configured, run test, jump back to the data here. Should see a new row. This time it's the actual video. And if I click on this here, it should show me the video, or it's allowing me to download it, or I can watch it directly here in Airtable. You can play it.
In this video, I'm going to share the secret to skyrocketing your YouTube channel.
Once you've done that and you've tested it, you can come back here. You can turn on this automation. Of course, you can come back to your make.com automation, and then you can turn that on. Once you've done that, every 15 minutes, this will trigger and it will pull in new audio messages. It'll transcribe them, create the script, and generate the video. And of course, you can always come into your Airtable base and extend the functionality, similar to the way I have this base set up here, where we pull in those scripts and we transcribe them, and we actually give ourselves the ability to edit them before we select an avatar. So really the sky's the limit on how you want to build this out. If you do want access to this specific Airtable base and this more complex make automation that can also generate scripts off of TikTok, make sure to jump into the No Code Architects community. You can get access to those templates, a Make an Airtable course, and a bunch of other modules like how to build your AI automation business or generating faceless videos. It's an active community. You can get tech support, and we've got calls almost every single day. I hope to see you inside the community. Either way, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one. And no, this was not an AI generated ending. All right, I'll see you.